The internet's #1 chat show about all things After the Fyre. I'm your host, Susie, who's cracking up at a very good cheese story. And with me today are my wonderful friends and castmates for After the Fyre, which is our Song of Ice and Fire campaign. Before we start, as always, let's go around. Let's say who we are, how we're doing, and who we play in the Ding Dang show that we're here to talk about. So, hello, I'm Susie. I play Lady Miriah Ironwood. Yeah, eh, um, eh, yeah. Anyway, hi Millie. You're next on my overlay. I'm good, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you're good.
Ha.
Hi, I'm Amelia Tyler. I play Lady Faye Rowan, who's made some great decisions, none of which involve cheese. So that's good. Everything's going great for her. I don't think she's made any missteps, and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, everything's great. No problems here. Nothing at all. Speaking of problems, Ivy. I'm sorry. I love you.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong though. Hi, I'm V. I play Mara, everybody's favorite problematic bitch. I'm okay. It's a day. Computers hate me today. That's what my day is, but
Well, we'll talk shit for a couple of hours and then you can forget about horrible computers for a bit.
we can look at horrible battles and horrible decisions instead.
Speaking of horrible decisions, hi Don.
Hey.
Sorry. It was right there. I had to.
Oh no, I deserve it. Hey, I'm Don. I play Lord Samuel Tarley, the honorable leader, co-leader of the Reach, and his father just died. He's making great decisions ever since then.
Would you say that the decisions that are obviously great decisions started long before the death of his father, though?
Well, he stopped an invasion of Dorne.
Yeah.
He got justice for an attempted murder during a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He put Leo Tyrell in chains, and so far he hasn't burned down that many buildings. So I think he's doing okay.
Best childhood friend ever.
Right?
Technically, Samuel hasn't burned down any buildings. He's just been in some burning buildings.
That's right. Yeah.
So definitely legally distinct terms.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's how he phrases it in every letter that he keeps spamming all the Lords of the Reach with. He's sending out spam mail.
I showed you my army, please respond.
God, I'm just imagining, right? You're a lord somewhere in the Reach that you're not involved with this war yet, but you just keep getting these fucking ravens. And you're like, oh my God.
Who the fuck is this Samuel Tarley? And why won't he shut up about wrestling? P.S. Want to come to my wrestling tournament?
Oh, that's a really good idea.
That is a really good idea. We should do
Fuck.
that.
That's how we broke a peace in the Reach. Not through war.
Or get
Through
naked and
wrestling.
oily.
Yeah.
Mara's
You can do
okay
whatever
with
the
this.
fuck you want in the Reach. I'm done with the Reach. I'm over it. I'm
Take me with
extremely
you.
over it.
Just run far away, Susie.
It's
Just
cold and shit here.
I'm just gonna go to Jourdain because I assume he's taken over as Prince of Dawn, and I'm gonna be like, look, bud, you want me on your council. Even if you don't, I'll just fucking be a problem for you. So do it. Give me a job.
You can let me on your council, or I can kill you. These are your only options.
I've beat you once before. I'll beat you again. Anyway, that's skipping right to the end of this season. We haven't had an After the Fyre in a long time. I think we had one right at the start of this season. Maybe.
Yeah, talking about it was like a couple of episodes in or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
And it feels
I can't even remember when this season started.
Yeah, I know. It feels like it started like 3 years ago. I feel like we've been here for a while.
Yeah.
But we actually haven't, not really. It's been like, what 13, 14 episodes total for this season. Which I think is getting
blur.
They do.
Like, I don't know where one season ends and the other begins. I just remember what terrible decisions we made.
Yeah. But so this season has really sort of like escalated I would say, beyond other seasons that we've had. We had some quite slow, like the tournament arc season was quite a slow burn one. It had a little thingy going. Season 3 again, pretty chill until the end, and then it wasn't at all chill. But this one has just gone bam out the gate, zero chill. Our characters have been through it, one could say. Some more than others. But I think the most recent the earliest episode that we haven't really talked about was the Battle of Summerhall. We didn't really get to do a chat about Summerhall, and I feel like that was the real turning point of this season where things got super, super dramatic. So, as you three, it was your episode. What do you guys feel like how that episode went? What were you expecting when you went into it? And by the end of it, what was the general emotional state of you and your characters?
Yeah, Don, tell us about feelings.
Um, I was excited for that episode. I hadn't done, I think the last time I was a part of a battle episode. Well, I guess there was the one with you where I was playing Facey
Yep.
in the previous season. But besides that, I hadn't been in a battle episode since the end of season 3 when we were in Castle Ironwood. We were trying to get Miriah out. So it had been a while, and I always have a lot of fun with those. It was not what I expected. I remember going into it thinking like, okay, this is going to be a slugfest. I knew we found out that Maekar wasn't there. So I was like, oh, well, this is like, I'm just going to roll this battle. This is going to be so easy. And it kind of was, for a while. But I did think I had this strong suspicion that Alistair was going to be there. And I was like, that's going to be the drama, is that Alistair is going to be at Summerhall. And of course, it was kind of faint. That wasn't what happened. So, but I knew, like, as soon as, like, I just knew it was too easy getting in there. We brought out our siege weapons, and there's like no resistance, and we're running through the halls, and there's chairs stacked up everywhere. Doors are barricaded, and so like my brain knew exactly what was happening. But I thought, if I just roll really well, then, maybe I can get there and find the wards and get the wards out. And so that was really fun, though. I thought it felt different. It felt very different than other kind of violent episodes that we've done before. I think Samwell only killed, like, I think I shot one person. Like, I didn't do a lot of fighting. And that's been pretty true for this character the entire time. I'm not really engaged in a lot of combat with Samwell. It's been more intriguey stuff, which he's not as good at, but it's been fun. But I remember, the tension of that episode built really well. I think Sam did a great job running it. And I think there was a moment, for folks who've seen the episode, there's a moment in the episode where we find the wards hogtied up in this room, and there's wildfire placed all around in this elaborate trap with like a candle that's burning through the rope that's holding the wildfire up, which is just absurd. Like, I love it. It's such a great visual image. And like in that moment, I kind of came to peace with the idea that Samwell's going to die right here. And I was like, you know what, like in this moment, something I've struggled with the character, because I think he struggles with it, is he honorable? Does he care? To what extent does he care about other people, especially people he doesn't know? If he's really pushed, is he willing to lay down his life, or is he a little bit more selfish and cowardly? Because when his story first started, when we first started the campaign, I started playing him. He'd just come out of this battle where he basically, like, the battle went to shit in Dorne, and he abandoned his people. Like, they got slaughtered and he ran. And so I was like, in this, like, after everything that's happened, he's going to do it. He's going to run in there. He's going to grab the rope and hold it. He's got his sword. So like, if some soldiers come in, he'll try to fight them off maybe, but like, he wants to give his soldiers and these children, these wards, a chance to get out. But I rolled terribly on his athletics check. It was just like really, really bad roll. And so he didn't die. But I think if he'd made that role, I think he would have died in that scene. And I was kind of excited in that moment. I was like, if this is how he goes, this is a great ending, I think, for him.
Yeah, I think for Samuel at least that would be like a great heroic redemption for him, as it were. Like,
I
you
don't
know,
know if he'll
he
ever get that
literally
chance again.
God bless him. But had he gone out in that moment there, you know, he sacrificed himself for those wards, like that would have been the heroic tale of Samuel Tarly. I mean, Samuel the Unburned is still pretty fucking tight, even though he
Fuck
was
off.
very burned.
He's pretty burned, yeah.
But it's a
Lady
good story to
Faye has
spin.
no room in her brain for inaccurate names. Sorry.
I think he uses it ironically now, because like whenever he says it, it's like, no, obviously I'm burned.
Yeah, like
Who came up with that name? How did that start?
Oh,
It
it's one of the
was-
lords, wasn't it?
It's-
Ambrose?
Cas-
Caswell.
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 One of the
Yeah.
two. Because I remember Faye's reaction was just like, oh God,
Yeah.
and Mara. There was a bit in Mara's head of going, please don't call him that. I
Do you
don't want
know
that to
what?
start a thing.
I feel
Like,
so
that's-
bad for Sam because in the moment, Sam is in our GM Sam, because it's in one of those moments where as a GM you're like, this is it. This is where I'm gonna bestow them a title or a nickname. Like this is their heroic moment. She comes out with Samuel the Unburned, and everyone on screen just went like laughed because. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I love playing a character who will call that shit out on screen.
Yeah.
As somebody who's spent a lot of time around court, she really doesn't hold her tongue much.
No.
How is she not dead?
I don't know. That is a question we will come to later because were I Samuel Tarly, the shit you get away with would not fucking fly in my camp. You would be out of there. If I was thinking purely like play to win, you know, disregarding any sort of emotional baggage or anything like that, you'd have been fucking dead within about a week.
Yep.
There's still
I
time.
think that's a question for Don rather than for me.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that later once we, you know. Actually, no, that's actually quite relevant. Because whilst Samuel was fighting for his fucking life in Summerhall, someone was up to something in the Tarly camp. Now, Ms. Amelia Tyler, explain yourself.
Well, she was bored and no. No, she was very much of the opinion because they come out of that discussion the previous night, right? Where they'd gone up on the hill and had that drinking game, and there'd been that first moment of honesty between them, where they'd both kind of gone, I kind of like you. Fuck, shit. No, we didn't talk about this. It's fine. She was of the opinion that her old friend had been led in a very bad direction and was making poor decisions. And he wasn't doing his chances of reclaiming his reputation any good. So her theory is like, okay, well, I can't stop him doing this, but what I can do is stop him attacking a castle that's got a fuck ton of wards in it and just busting the place open by accident, so I can make the siege more difficult. So maybe he'll fuck off. Maybe he'll, you know, stupidly, he would never do that. But she's like, well, maybe if enough of this goes wrong, he'll stop it. But simultaneously, there's a kid here who should not be on the battlefield, and I need to use a fire as a distraction. So it was sabotage deliberately aimed to create enough chaos to get that kid out of there and potentially make the battle a bit less deadly for both sides. That was it. It wasn't really a like, fuck you and your camp, how dare you take me prisoner. It was just like, well, if I'm going to be here, I might as well be useful. So she's kind of, it's extreme babysitting, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And getting little Lord Peter out of there, I think, was a very shrewd move for Faye. Because it does allow her to do that, to play both sides, as it were, but also show her allegiance a little bit, you know, to certain people. And organizations. Speaking of Little Lord Peter, it seemed to have gone like unremarked though in the Tully camp that this child, the heir to Highgarden, is gone.
I think we talked about this kind of behind the scenes because we had like a big time skip after that. I mean, we had a couple of big time skips over the next couple of sessions that like we tightened up security. Like it was something that we talked about, the generals met about, but we couldn't figure out because I think, Faye had rolled so well, Millie had rolled so well on all of her stuff that she'd done that we couldn't trace it back to Faye. So we didn't know exactly what had happened, but that was the point though, where because I until then we'd kind of been taking this like oblivious approach. Like, of course, nobody, we don't have any spies in our camp. Nobody's going to betray us. And we hadn't really seen any evidence to the contrary until that moment. So like, that's when we started tightening security a little bit and changing some things, which I think probably like down the road made things a little harder for Faye.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, she's been mechanically paranoid since the beginning of this season. Like I took that as a drawback. So
that's great.
That's the kind of thing that I have to roll for in intrigues, but I want to make that. I always like to make the bad points of a character on the sheet something that I role play around as well. So she's like, she was already a chess thinker, but she's thinking like 15 steps ahead of how can I make sure this doesn't get traced back to me or the people I care about. So there's a lot of costumes and shit going on, and a lot of, well, if this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And she's just getting wearier and wearier. And now she's making dumb decisions.
Yeah, we were all out here playing checkers and she's there with the 5D chess, and now Faye's going more knots and crosses.
Faye doesn't want to play anymore. She's just like, would anyone just like make this stop, please? Or
well, as you will find out later, a certain Bravosi boy is on his way back.
Oh god, yeah, just take
unthinkably.
Yeah, run towards the battle, Enzo. People make dumb decisions when it comes to Faye. Yeah. Real dumb decisions.
I think this season has definitely shown as well when it comes to love for our characters. Every single one of them has made stupid fucking decisions. Just the stupidest fucking decisions. But, that's what love does to you.
The annoying thing is, even though there have been so many times when an episode is finished and Tom's messaged me directly after, like, she's given up on Samuel right now. That's it after that conversation. I'm like, oh, you don't understand.
You don't know.
That's not how she works.
The amount of times Tom has been in my DMs being like, fucking hell.
And it's really super awkward because it's kind of like having your current boyfriend watching you and an ex interacting. It's very weird. But even now that they've both kind of gone, there's not going to be a good resolution to this, is there? This is going down the bad road. There's still a tiny bit of her that still cares and still thinks he can be saved, and it's that part that's going to get her killed.
Yeah. But speaking of,
should have just made her gay.
Seriously,
would have been easier.
But speaking of stupid things we do for love, somebody in that particular episode, with no martial skill whatsoever or any sort of defense or anything, ran into an active battlefield looking for her husband.
It's not the first time that Mara's run onto battlefields, let's be fair.
True.
She the problem with Mara is that ever since the Salastrire's attack, she's had this very strange relationship with death. Because as far as she was concerned, she should have died. And she came back. Whether or not she was like dead and came back, or like by the grace of something managed to not die and just hold out. She shouldn't have done. She should have totally bled out, because that was like a destiny point spent to save her. Mara has this distinct like lack of fear of death and harm towards herself, which like comes out in this recklessness and this kind of like weird oath that like Didn't happen on screen because of stuff happening in that original episode. But I think I wrote a fic because I'm way too invested in this character. Where basically she's like, just let me come back. I just got married. I just made vows to this man. Let me come back and keep them. So there's a bit of her that, like, she does believe in the old gods. She does believe in magic. And she's like, well, I said I had a thing to do, so I guess I should go and do the thing. And that's what she's talking to Faye about when Faye's like, why would you go out there? That's stupid. And she's like, I made a promise long before my wedding vows, like, because obviously they got married in secret. So yeah, she takes off because her whole thing is like, well, if he's dead, then it doesn't really matter what happens to me, because realistically she has no heir for the house. As soon as she marries somebody, even if the house is hers, it goes to someone else. Papa Tarly's still alive at that point too, as well, so it's not even really her house yet. And Samwell's all she's really got left. And also there's the possibility that Samwell has her brother. Like, that's what she's hoping for. She knows her brother's in there. She's just seen it go up in flames. And of course, like, when something terrible happens, you think the worst thing, and then you hope for like the ideal best situation. And for her, that's like riding out there and there's Samwell with her brother and everything's fine. And everything was not fine. Everything was horrible. And like, you know, Mara's seen death, she's experienced death, she's lost people, but like, I think that was she has no fear for herself, but seeing that place burn and men coming out screaming was just like, this is horrific. And if she wasn't already kind of semi for the Blackfyre cause, because like Miriah, we grew up in a family that really liked the Blackfyres.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like, you know, Papa Greenmont in there that she grew up around and her brothers. And then she finds Samwell and typically loses all sense of sensibility and just rushes over. Yeah, because she doesn't care. She's like, that's my husband. I'm going to go and find. I'm going to go and get him.
He was, you know, he was making the sound of like a hot car in summer. You know, like he was ticking in his plate mail, freshly made.
And then for the second time, she ended up with a Heartsbane right in her face, except it was less friendly this time.
Yeah.
Thank God for the armor that Samwell bought her as a wedding gift. Because that's all that saved her. Mara's got like 6 hit points. If she doesn't have armor on, like, I think the attack on Salastraya like outright killed me. That's how squishy Mara is. She doesn't have hit points. It's not a thing.
If it wasn't for Samwell making Faye promise to look after her, when that guy went for her, she would have just like let the tension out of the bowstring and watched it happen.
Oh shit.
She hates her. She blames Mara for everything. She cannot see that Samwell is responsible for this, because all she knows is this sweet guy who was my friend and I loved him got together with this girl and started making shit decisions. And she's been horrible throughout. She's been openly unpleasant.
Mara has been trying so hard, but she's just really bad at it because she's so used to just being able to convince people and people liking her that she doesn't know how to deal with the fact that she kind of knows on some deep level Faye hates her guts, and she totally understands all of the reasons why. But she still, like, she really tries for Samwell's sake. Like, that's how Faye ended up locked away in a cupboard in the first place during the wedding, because she was like, Samwell, you can't put Faye to the sword because she's going to call your bluff. She's clever and you're not going to be able to do it. So we're just going to stick her in a room and then we don't have to have this decision, because otherwise that whole wedding thing could have gone very differently, I think, if that had happened and Faye had called Samwell's bluff.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but hang on. I feel bad for Mara this season because I know.
It's the first time for everything, Susie. It's okay.
Because she has lost everything and everyone around her except for Samwell. You know, everyone that she had loved once has or had been friends with has turned their back on her and have outright said to her face that they fucking hate her guts. And it must, like, for her, like, as a person, just
horrible
suck to be in that position.
Because, like, she has to get to like, she's at a point now where she's like, okay, fuck it. There is nothing I can do. And I think the thing that pains her most is where that all started was with what Alistair did, that she had no knowledge of, no control over. And by the time she even knew what had happened, like 3 days had passed before he actually admitted what he'd done. So she had no way of going back and being like, wait, no, hold on a minute. This is bad. Now she's in like survival mode and makes a whole bunch of bad decisions. So like before she's even done anything that could be considered terrible, people have turned their back on her. So now there's that element of like, well, you hate me anyway, so it doesn't matter what I do. And then she thinks she's fine, that she can deal with that. And in her head, she's like, I still have 2 brothers, and like they're going to grow up one day. And they're probably going to want to know who their sister is, because I'm also going to be the lady of this great house. So maybe that's not too far gone. And then she finds out her brother's dead. And like, that's the most grief she can manage in that moment, is screaming her lungs out. And then she kind of doesn't really bring it up all that much, except to point out what happened at Summerhall and, you know, the atrocity of what happened. But she just like shoves that down deep. She's like, I don't have time to cry about this right now. This is not the place. I can cry when this is over. And it's horrible. Because
I really
like every time Samwell's talking about going to war, she knows it. And there's a bit of her that's like, yeah, like you do with anyone you care about, like they'll be fine. But also like the horrible fear of like, but what if it isn't? And now Papa Tarly's gone. This man that she like really cared about, that we never really got to see because we didn't get a lot of screen time with Papa Tarly, but like she was really fond of him, and in her mind like he reminded her of Lukos. Now he's gone, so if anything happens to Samwell, there's no Papa Tarly to turn to and like take some comfort in some semblance of family. It's just her as the lady of this great house in the middle of a war.
I love that complexity to her, because it would be very easy for her to be like a surface level Cersei, this is the bad guy. And seeing the vulnerability and the fear that hardness comes from is really psychologically fascinating to me.
All
feeling sorry for her,
Mara's,
but also hating her still.
Yeah, all of Mara's like sharpness and like the cruelty that she's capable of, because I think there is really like a Cersei like spitefulness to her if she wanted, comes from all of that fear that just builds. Like I've had a 4 like mechanically in intimidation for like 2 seasons now, and rarely had a chance to use it because Mara doesn't have to. She doesn't like lying. She doesn't enjoy being dishonest. And she doesn't, you know, she's not a fan of violence, but violence is a means to an end. And her and Samwell spent ages trying to avoid this, you know, trying to get out of the conflict in Dawn. Mara didn't even want like Marzi when that trial went on. She didn't want the death penalty to be a thing, but violence kind of keeps showing up, and she's like, well, this is the means to an end, and maybe once this is done there won't be any more of that, and that'll justify it, like that terrible the ends justify the means kind of thinking. That's all she's got left. Like she is so deeply broken and trying to cover it up, and we only see her on screen a lot in front of people at parlays and in meetings where she's playing this role, this really heavy mask of like everything is fine, but in private she's a fucking mess. Like she still hasn't dealt with the fact she murdered Ellery. She shoved that deep down too.
Like,
we'll get to that.
Just like
I really loved
all the way
that,
down there.
that scene. I can't remember. Was it the awkward dress scene? I can't remember when Faye's still in her underwear. It's one of those. Or whether there was a moment between the two of them where Faye genuinely felt sorry for her for the first time, and there was that like, it's different, isn't it?
That was
when they die on their knees, it's different.
When Faye was waiting outside the tent because she'd come to see
That's
Samwell
it.
and see
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happened, and she happened to catch the moment just as Mara found out what had happened, and like Mara was slumped over Samwell's lap, just like screaming her lungs out and crying, just like that horrible guttural scream that you get when someone is just beyond feeling anything but grief. And like that awkward moment as Mara feels kind of awkward because she's like, oh god, somebody has seen beneath this veneer that I'm really trying to put up in public. And it's Faye, which on one hand is really comforting to her because she actually up until recently quite liked Faye, even though Faye hated her guts. But like that awkward thing of like, you are the last person I want to see me like this. But also it's weirdly comforting because I know that you understand this grief. Like, it's a really horrible mix when they're together. Because Mara really likes her, but
if
it's
she'd
also
been
just
vulnerable like that from the beginning, Faye would like her a lot more. It's that she's grown up around court and she knows bullshit when she smells it, and she's like, "You're lying, and I don't like you." Whereas if she suffered maybe earlier on, or vocalized that suffering, shown some vulnerability, that's what she respects. Because all she sees is guys playing the big I am all day, and she sees straight through it.
I don't think she knew how to. Like, Mara doesn't show that vulnerability really to anyone but Samuel. And she doesn't know how to show it to anybody else because of that weight of expectation that she perceives other people as having for her, whether that's judgments that she thinks that they've made, or like, it's a really horrible thing where she's tried to be vulnerable with Faye, like about the Costain thing, and it all just comes out wrong. Because she doesn't quite know how to.
But how much better is that? It would have been so easy for us to meta the fuck out of it and be like, no, let's make them friends. Let's make this complicated and interesting.
We've talked about this though before, and it's like, oh my god, could you imagine like if they got on the same page? How
the reach
amazing that would be.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of more fun that they just don't. And like, maybe it will happen somehow, and something, there'll be some event that changes that. I'm not sure there will be, but it's way more fun playing this, because Mara kind of likes Faye until recently, where now she kind of really doesn't like Faye, but she knows that
which
is important.
Excuse me, is the least dreadful thing that she could have done. Like, a guy goes, hey, you know that agreement we made? Yeah, fuck that agreement, and also give me all your stuff. And she's like, make me. That's what you take issue with.
But it's Mara, and Samuel can do no wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Oh God, that boy.
That boy.
You make me vomit, Don.
I love this though because. Oh, so go ahead, Don.
Like, Mara doesn't know what to do. Sorry, go ahead.
This is entirely random, but I just accidentally clicked on our Roll20, which is probably not up in chat, on my catapults, and I rolled 6 6s.
It's fine.
I just thought I'd share that.
The devil's
save that to the next
time
episode.
it's ever happened to me.
You need to like screen grab
I'm gonna screen cap it and send it to Sam.
Send it to Sam so she knows.
So she knows.
Just practicing. They're all fixed now.
But
it's so complicated and cool.
Yeah,
I love the interaction with these three.
Where you were talking about the vulnerability of our characters, and especially for those of us who have played female characters on the show, there is like, because it's Westeros, right, and it's modeled after like a medieval Europe, women showing vulnerability is like not a thing that is permitted in court, right? Because then it's just, oh, weak women. Am I right?
You have to be one or the other, right?
Yes.
If you're a strong woman, you can't be vulnerable. If you're always vulnerable, people can deal with that, but they're not going to take you seriously. Like, you just become a pretty face who cries a lot, and that's all they see.
Yeah. And I think each one of us throughout the show in general have dealt with that in our own ways, and like how that's developed in each of our characters, and when we have shown those moments of vulnerability has been very different for each character, but also is just like it hits so much more of a punch because none of us have been allowed to be vulnerable in our like public faces as our characters.
I loved that moment up on the hill before the Summerhall battle with Samuel, just because it was the first time both of them had kind of taken the gloves off and been vulnerable with each other.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene too. And the first character I played in this campaign was Dornish, and like very, very open about his emotions. Like, he was a vulnerable character, like proudly so. And Samwell, grew up this sort of like kid, head in the clouds, entitled, rich. He's got a powerful, wealthy family, and he's always daydreaming. He was really an idealist when he was a kid. And then, like Faye's character and a lot of the other characters here, most of his family died in or around the previous Blackfyre rebellion. And now, he has a father who spoils him, but also like makes it known consistently, like, you're not doing good enough for this house. And he's right, because Samuel's like the only one left in the line. And so, I always imagined that, he's had these different loves in his life. And so he had this sort of childhood love with Faye that was very like, it was an arranged marriage, but like they did have a great young relationship, and he was a daydreamer, and he liked that she didn't really entirely play by the rules, and she was fun. And then he got dragged more and more into being forced to become a knight and, learn to fight. And even Alistair, who enabled him, maybe some of like the worst instincts in him, Alistair was an enabler, and he kind of fell in love with Alistair. And then he met Mara. And when their lives became very traumatic and they both got involved with this big conspiracy to murder Sir Oliver and the trial, and Mara lost the child, and Mara is married to Alistair, who he had a relationship with. That relationship, their friendship that kind of grew over time for him, it's very much like a love that's born out of trauma. It's very different relationships with all those people. And he's not the kind of person who's ever been able to let go of the few close relationships that he's had. And so that's why he finds himself constantly in these situations where like he struggled to this point dealing with Faye in a way that makes any kind of sense. And I think, he is playing, Samuel, it's not a shock to hear, but he is playing his own game of chess here, that he's been playing for a long time, but he keeps making mistakes anytime the pieces get anywhere close to Faye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of why. And we haven't seen Alistair until recently, but that's a similar kind of thing, because he just doesn't have a lot of those close relationships left. And over time, that sort of idealism has become a little embittered, and his vulnerability has become less. And so I've loved a few times with Faye where that's come up, and that first one on the hill, that scene, the drinking game, which is just a fun way to frame a scene in a role-playing game.
I'll be honest, I just wanted to fuck with you.
I'm okay, but I love being fucked with. Yeah, that was a really great scene. And there's been like, ever since then, there's been this like, will they, won't they, how are they going to resolve this relationship? It keeps going back and forth. But every time it's come close to like maybe some kind of good resolution for their relationship, it doesn't, because their goals are still, they're just not aligned.
I'm not sure it's that. I'm pretty
well,
sure it's
their
the fact that when they're
personalities.
nearly there, he's like, so you're going to give me your armies, right? And she's like, oh,
he really needs those armies, Faye. He really needs those armies.
There was that heartbreaking moment as well. And I don't know if anybody watching would have caught what it meant to Faye, but straight after the Summerhall battle, when she went into that tent and saw Mara crying and saw Samuel there, and there's that awkward, like, she sat down next to Mara. He'll get up and polish his sword and pretend this isn't happening. But then Mara puts she's walked in there with a cloak, a Tarly cloak around her shoulders that one of the knights has put around her because she's basically in her underwear. And then Mara puts one of her dresses on her, and there's like this weird out of body experiences that brought up so many emotions for her that she just couldn't deal with, because she's used to being able to talk through that.
It's like a weird reversal, right? Because Faye just had to go and watch Mara have a cloak put around her shoulders and stand in a place where, had things gone differently, Faye would be stood. And in that scene, there's like a complete reversal. And it's so awkward because you can tell that Mara's just trying to be nice. She's not trying to make a point about doing this, but she's just like, you just saved my life. You can't just sit there and freeze with this cloak wrapped around you. That's stupid. And then like Caswell had come in or something, so it was even more awkward because he's like trying to do that. I'm not looking at the half naked lady in the corner. But then like typical Mara and Faye interaction is just one of them tries to do something nice and the other one just totally, it goes completely wrong.
It was one of those beautiful moments of symbolism that George likes to do in Game of Thrones, right? Like we've said it before, the comparisons before of the stag killing the direwolf right at the start of a Game of Thrones, right? like literally Faye, who was going to be Samwell's bride, has a Tali cloak around her shoulders in front of his actual bride. It's just one of those like, ooh.
We don't even plan this shit. It just
Ooh.
happens.
And do you remember the thing about the huntress that we talked about?
Yes.
Where that had been, who was it?
So Weirland, for anyone who maybe has forgotten this, because this was quite a while back now. This was way at the start of the tournament, I think.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Mara comes across Weirland and a little shitty Targaryen kid being weird in the woods. And Weirland tells her about this dream that he has about the hunter being burned by like a golden dragon or something. And the huntress has to put him out of his misery. Or the huntress comes in and saves him. It's not really clear whether that means putting the flames out or whether that's putting him down. But in that scene where Faye saves Mara and by extension saves Samwell, she is the image of the huntress because she has the bow and arrow.
Samwell had a dream at the beginning, right, going into that battle, before the battle, of facing down what looked like in Maekar's armor, Maekar Targaryen, during the battle. And Maekar grabbed Mara and pulled her into this building. And when Samwell cornered the two of them inside this building in Summerhall, Maekar breathed fire at Samwell, and Samwell threw his sword at Maekar, and it killed Mara. So that was another dream. So like, I love that, and I think sometimes it just like it's like self-fulfilled prophecy almost, right? If you have a dream, and this is why I love dreams and visions and tabletop games, is they're open to interpretation, but you can create those moments and you can subvert your expectations of what those moments are going to be, and we've seen that happen a couple of times. It's always really cool when it does.
And it was that dream, I think, that made Samwell ask Faye to look after Mara during the battle.
That's
so
exactly
it all kind of
right. And if he hadn't,
on.
then Mara would have died.
Yeah.
By a
Mara
got
that.
By a heart's
right.
pain. I can only imagine though what Samwell's like thoughts would have been when like he finally has that moment where he's like, what happened to you? And she's bleeding from the arm, her wrist is busted. And she basically has to explain to him that she took a full-on swing from a, Targy knight wielding Heartsbane. And that sword is no joke. Like, legitimately, that thing is...
It's massive, and it's made out of
huge.
Valyrian steel.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe in magic, and that's come up a couple of times. He doesn't believe in the gods. He doesn't believe in magic. So like he willingly, like, even I think his asking was probably more just anxiety. Like, this is an anxiety dream. And when there were parallels, he didn't see it, or he wasn't willing to see it. But he wasn't surprised that Mara came after him during the battle. And I think that scene is that really awkward scene that we're talking about. It's one of the few times he's actually gotten like visibly angry and kind of snapped. And it was stressful. I remember thinking like, God, this is stressful. Like, I just saw all these kids get burned alive, and I had to come back. I almost died myself. I had to come back, and Mara, my wife, almost got killed with my own sword. And she was saved by Faye, my ex-fiance, who I almost hooked up with the night before. And Faye seems mad, and Faye's talking about Costain, and Costain's part of my plan. What is going on? And it was an intense scene.
I think I said afterwards that like the only reason Mara didn't snap back at Samwell, because like Mara will take a lot of shit, but she won't deal with people talking to her like shit. Like, she snaps. I think it's Caswell when he even like dares to briefly, barely, the idea of like ransoming her brother back, and she's like, don't even fucking go there. But she has a moment where she wants to turn around and be like, don't talk to either of us like that. That's not, this isn't a thing. And then she realized that he's probably just had like the worst day of his life, and is like, you know what, that can wait. I think she tells him the next day, she's like, you need to go and apologize.
The apology. But I really feel like this season in particular, I mean, all our seasons have been like a lot about relationships, but this season in particular is really, really, even though it's like the war is happening and the war is the forefront of the season, the relationships within this war have been like the big thing. And so we see it with you guys, with the Samwell, Faye, that Mara, that horrible triangle. Ugh. And then, Enzo and Faye with their, almost so fucking close. And then no, but then also yes, but also no, but also yes. And then with Miriah and Harris and, their little blossoming relationship, which has been actually really fun for me to play because, Miriah from season 5, I don't know, maybe from season 3 onwards, she's been very like, I can't be a girl, I can't be a woman, I've got to do the thing, I've got to fix this fucking world because it's shit, and I'm one of the few people that can fix it, and I will do it. But when she met up with Harris again, it was like she was a girl again, because she suddenly, she started having those little crush feelings for him, and then he sort of seemed to be feeling them for her, and they were doing this awkward, awful flirting for a while. And it was just like, it was a nice way for me to like get Miria's humanity back, as it were. She'd become like this little machine for a while, like no emotions, only stab. But here it was getting to explore what it was like to be in a teenage love affair, which turns out a shit show.
So you were doing the Arya thing, but properly, as
Yeah.
opposed to just kind of like, end of the show, must get her laid.
Yeah. But, and it makes, as you said, it make terrible decisions in these relationships. And when Miriah and Harris bang outside of Fox Hollow after Miriah had just killed a bunch of Greenmont men, that wasn't exactly a great decision.
That was the one, right?
That was the one.
That's
That's
the
when she
first
got
one.
literally the first one. We didn't know it at the time, but that was the night that Miriah got pregnant.
I feel like people should know that whenever like characters in the show get it on, afterwards all of us are screaming at whoever it is, being like, roll the dice, roll the dice, see what happens, roll that dice.
So the way that works as well, so just for folks that don't know, is Sam will have us roll a d6. She thinks of a number, and then if what we roll matches that number, our character is pregnant. So that's what happened. But oh god, I was going somewhere with this.
Suddenly very glad that my character hasn't got laid at any point since I've been playing her.
Trust me, Millie.
Through want of trying.
You should be glad. But yeah, Miriah's relationship this season has been something very interesting to explore. Very fun, very heartbreaking at times. Because I think it as well, especially as we go on later, and they have that lovely night at where was it? Ashford,
yeah.
We had the dinner, and then we was dancing, and then her and Harris go up, and then Harris, with his post-nut clarity, goes, "I don't think I can marry you," and Miriah goes, "Yeah, I know, you're right, you can't." And if I had been playing Miriah as the Angie stab girl only, she would have gone, "What the fuck do you mean you can't marry me? Like, we are making a new world fucking order. You can marry who the fuck you want." But this was Miriah, the vulnerable girl, who just fucking desperate to be loved by someone and have someone in her life that she can love. And she had fallen in love with him. And he turns around and says that to her, and she's just defeated in that moment. She's just hurt. Her heart broke. Which was so sad. Afterwards, for like a solid week, I was like, "Oh, it's fine." Fine. It was not fine.
And then it really wasn't fine.
No. And then, after a little time skip, when she makes it back to Ironwood and she hasn't had a period, and she goes, "Oh, fuck. It was actually super not fine."
Doubly not fine, considering that he then basically proposed to someone else.
That was a good plan. And
it was.
We see you. We saw that coming a mile off, you little.
I'm sure, yeah. It's hard
When
to
you were
hard to
like,
find new
"You
tricks.
asked yet?" We were like, "All right. If I can see you. All right."
Bless Harris, though. I loved watching that scene. Like, Harris just, like, completely fumbling everything that comes out of his mouth that's political in any way.
Go on, try convincing me. Just, you haven't got a glass jaw, right? Okay. All right, brace yourself. It's gonna fucking hurt.
Bless it. I can see it from, if we were to abstract it, if we didn't know what we knew about the characters, it would be a good idea. Faye is extremely, politically smart. She's already got position at Highgarden. She knows her way. She's well liked by lords and ladies across the Reach. She comes from a good house. With, obviously there is no heir for House Rowan. She is House Rowan, but like, it's just a good way if you were playing Crusader Kings, oh, there you go. I've just extended my realm a little bit. I've got an extra add-on, If Faye was not Faye, with her personality, great match, great idea. Marry her.
Is it though? Because all the arguments she put forward to him were completely true. Like, there's no point you using marriage to forge an alliance with me. We've got one. Use it for something that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Well, do we though? Fine. Do we really?
Well, not anymore.
Alliances in Westeros usually involve armies.
Yeah.
So
that's the main thing, right? That was really the thing behind the plan, was like, get the armies and continue to try to unite the Reach. And also Harris needs somebody to help him. And Samwell realizes that he's his days in Harris's high esteem are starting to wane a little bit. He's starting to be a little bit more wary of Samwell. But Faye,
wonder why.
Harris makes bad decisions.
Hey, I'm one of those decisions.
It's true.
Yeah, but
so am I.
Miriah also makes bad decisions, so it evens out. But Harris keeps.
None of us make good decisions.
No,
that's true.
No, that's
more fun.
Yeah.
But Harris's decisions are worse because they're completely the opposite of what Samwell and Mara want to do. Like, I feel like somewhere behind the scenes there was a conversation after, they had to talk him out of the bad idea that he was originally just going to, let's just ride for Horn Hill and abandon everything we've done so far. I feel like there was definitely a conversation when Mara and Sam were like, he needs to stop having his own ideas. He needs to just.
And he still did it. He still did it. That's where we're heading. That's where we're heading, is away from our good fortification, away from our plan to meet a larger army out in the middle of the field.
Yeah,
it's all right. Make our Targaryens a little bit. Should be fine.
Yeah, but.
Baelor isn't.
Baelor's not.
Oh yeah, Baelor.
I've never seen anybody roll as high as he rolled in that intrigue.
But feel free to pair Faye off with him. That would be fine.
Man, tell you, if Miriah didn't hate the Targaryens, what a world. Anyway,
so
yes, Don.
I have a question about Miriah. What's next for Miriah?
So I've been actually thinking about it because, as you know, if you watch the show, Miriah is currently laid up with several injuries and a pregnancy right now after she fought Prince Maekar and Bloodraven in the Bone Way. I think for the time being, her fighting days are over. She's not gonna go charging off to war again unless something desperately terrible happens, because she's got to get rid of a skull fracture and also hopefully carry a child to term and give birth. Yes, hiding from birds and windows is what's next for me. So my first goal is survive Bloodraven, because that bitch is petty and I know he's gonna try and finish the fucking job, and I don't want to die to Bloodraven. I can't do it. Me personally, Susie, cannot die to Bloodraven. And B, she's going to shift, I think, from a martial focus to a more political focus. So if things have gone well at Sunspear, it means Lord Jourdain is now the Prince of Dawn.
And we don't really know, right? We don't know how things are going. We have no idea what's going on at Dorne.
Yeah. So if Jourdain has taken over, the Martells are dethroned, and House Jourdain is now the ruling house of Dawn, Miriah is going to be like, hello. You want me on your council. if you don't put me on your council, you're going to have a problem, so give me a job. Because for twofold ways, because A, she is very good at politics. Like, Miriah is very savvy. She's good at social intrigue and the like. And secondly, and well, there's probably 3 points. Secondly, she does want to make change at not just like a local level with Ironwood, but with the realm itself. Hashtag Free Dawn is a thing. And also, she can't get rid of the entire Targaryen line if she just disappears from courtly life. So, if she wants to do some assassinations, she's got to get in the places where she can do the assassinations or pay people to do them. So, she can't just be like, all right, I won Ironwood, I'm just going to fucking peace out. I've got my castle, I'm going to have my kid and ship it off to Bravos and then maybe have another one. Who knows? She can't just take a back seat. She's still got to be active. But I don't think that being a warrior is going to have to take a little back seat for a bit for her, I think.
I just want to say, Susie, with Miriah, like, we've had very few scenes together with Mara and Miriah, and they've always been super terribly awkward, like in the best way.
Yeah.
But this season's one was like my favorite between the two of us, because that petty arguing got so, like, it went from arguing to like Miriah like exclaiming her grief about like still wanting to care for Mara and not being able to, and Mara feeling horribly guilty and probably giving the first truly honest apology she's ever given anybody in the show's history.
Talk about character vulnerability. That was, I think, when Miriah has been most vulnerable in that tent. From the moment she stepped in there, and she tried doing the whole adopting her military posture and just trying to keep her shit together and be very curt with her answers. But as you find out through the conversation, like, she still loves Mara after everything. She's her sister, and she can't close her heart to that as much as she's tried. Even when she had that blade to her throat and she's like, I would have slit your fucking throat, I don't know if she would have. She might have cut her, but I don't think she would have gone deep enough to kill her.
It's the heartbreaking moment, though, when Mara basically admits that she killed Ellery, and I guess Miriah up until that point would have assumed sensibly it would have been Samwell.
Yeah.
But and then Mara, when she's like, oh, I just said that. Oh, she didn't know. Because like Mara's like, I guess so I might as well be honest about it.
Yeah, I will be honest, Miriah thought that you wouldn't even have done it, like Samwell wouldn't even have done it, that you just had a guard do it. And so to hear that her sister, the woman who professes to love her, murdered her betrothed. Because, as well, I mean, you don't really see it in the show because we had to do a lot of, like, skipping out of quiet downtime scenes. But Miriah and Ellery had a, like, years-long courtship. Because Ellery was at Blackmont and Miriah was at Greenmont. This is when she made it back home. And so Miriah would be the main go-between between the two houses because Marcia wanted to keep a good relationship there. So Miriah would visit Blackmont often, to check up on her own family there with the Blackmonts, but also to court with Ellery, and Ellery would come up and visit. And like, I think at some point I wrote like a little fic of Ellery and Miriah taking little Bryn on a picnic because Marcy had sent them off, just be like, hey, this is what it's going to be like. Go out with a kid and, let's see what it's going to be like for you. And, there was that moment because Ellery in the show is quite a young knight, he's full of bravado and all that stuff. And you don't really see his like soft emotional side, but he did have it. And so Miriah did, she, in her own way, she did love Ellery. So to find out that her fucking sister killed him.
Mara does feel kind of guilty about that. Not because she doesn't believe that, like, in her head, there's two halves of her. The half that was like, we had to do it. Like, Mara tried to be like, just fucking bend the knee. Like, be sensible. Bend the knee. I don't even care if you mean it. Just bend the fucking knee. You're my sister's fiance. Don't fucking do this. And he just decided to do the young, stupid, I have bravado thing. And I don't know if he really thought that she'd do it. And then Mara's like, you just have left me no choice because now it is my pride, which is really important right now for what's happening.
I think he did. I think he completely understood. It felt like it watching the scene that he was just like, I can't.
he couldn't.
He
It
was
wasn't
on.
bravado.
so screwed up because of Maekar Targaryen.
Yeah.
Maekar Targaryen tortured that kid.
Yeah.
He dominated his life. Like he was more afraid. I believe this. I think Ellery is more afraid of Maekar Targaryen than dying, and that's why he chose to die.
Yeah, because if he saw in that moment that if your guys' rebellion had crumbled from there, if that was your crowning moment of your rebellion and you lost, and Maekar found out that he bent the knee, then he was terrified of what Maekar would do to him. I mean, as an ally, Maekar tortured that boy. Like, imagine what he would do as an enemy. So yeah, in that moment, Ellery was broken. He just physically could not. Even if he did love Miriah, because he never stated it on screen if he did or not. But yeah, brutal.
Mara's heart broke seeing Miria's face, like not realizing, because like in her head she's like, Miriah knows. So like Miriah in her head, Miria's had that grief of realizing Ellery's dead, Mara's responsible, but then she has to watch that happen in front, like consequences of her actions right in front of her.
Yeah.
And when you had that knife to Mara's throat and Mara calls off the guard, she's like, I've got a second to decide if they should grab her and stop this. And in that moment, she has no idea if Miriah is going to do anything with it, but she stops them anyway, because there's a bit of her that's like, you know what? In this moment, if this is how it ends, maybe I kind of deserved it, because like the one family member that maybe I hoped would come around, especially after everything that Marcia did at Fox Hollow with like sending men to their deaths, of like maybe now Miriah will see what Mara saw in the gods would, but no, that was just, that whole scene was so fun to play.
Well, part of it as well was Miriah working out her own guilt too, because she had these feelings for Ellery, and he was killed, and then not long after, here comes Harris, and she's feeling all goo-goo-eyed and falling for him, and part of her is like, I'm a fucking asshole. I am a absolute fucking shitbag. I was gonna marry this man. I had fallen for him in his own way. I was gonna marry him. I would have been happy to be the Lady Peak, have his children, and then here's this new guy, and I'm like, the heart's going all fluttery, and she's like, I fucking suck.
Like, I've already forgotten the dead fiance from only a few months back.
Welcome to Faye's world.
Ellery was a dick to Miriah in the tournament, though. I feel like there was a moment where like Miriah, I saw it in your eyes playing Miriah. Like there was just a total change in how you saw Ellery.
Yeah, when he fucking tried to like chump me out in the tournament, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? He fucking sucked. All right, let's go. And then afterwards too, like, I don't know if you remember, but Ellery sat with a bunch of knights, and then Miriah comes along, and all the knights are like, hey, oh my god, it's Miriah, and Ellery's all embarrassed and ashamed because like, my girlfriend's cooler
my friends like her more than me.
He's a young man, you know what I mean? Like, it's an ego thing.
He had a temper though, right? Like there was that scene with Marcia where there was clearly like another side bubbling.
Yeah,
he
so Rhaemar Rhaemar Blackmont was the youngest cousin. It was actually who Uncle Blackmont wanted to marry Miriah to in season 1. He was Ellery's squire, because Miriah had been like, okay, so sure, my cousin's lands and house have been taken and given to you, but I'm not going to have them become peasants, so you'll take Rhaemar as your squire, and they'll be able to live in the castle and still have some status and stuff like that. So it was like a little compromise that Miriah had made. And then Ellery snaps at him and like backhands him, like when they're alone in the tent, and like Miriah doesn't see this, because if she had done, she'd have fucking slapped Ellery, being like, you do not lay hands on my kin. Or anyone for that matter, you shitbag. But
I think it makes so much sense for Ellery too. Like violence is socially, it's like a cyclical thing, and it gets passed down from generation to generation. And the Peaks are notoriously like violent people, hard on their own family. Yeah. And Gorman Peak, was a psychopath. So that was Ellery's father. And then Ellery's surrogate father, I guess, against his will, was Maekar, who's also a violent person in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, poor kid didn't stand a chance.
No. Did him a
Ultimately,
favor.
bullet dodged for me. So again, as Susie, thank you for saving me that.
Straight into the path of another bullet.
Mara didn't know it, just like somewhere in the ether, the universe went, Miriah deserves better. And
no, but as we saw,
Miriam deserves a different shit show.
yes. A slightly happier shit show, but maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, all things being well, as we saw in the most recent episode, you'll win at Highgarden, and then Harris can come and meet his child before I send it off to Bravos, and he can propose to Miriah, and she can be like, I don't know. Yep. Yeah, I see those faces. I know.
Yep.
I know.
That's how that's gonna go.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna win. I felt a lot better about it before last session. Samuel definitely felt better about it before last session, but I still feel optimistic. I don't know what the cost will be.
You've got to be optimistic.
Hopefully, it's just if Alistair just wants to be part of that whole collateral damage thing, that would be totally fine by me.
Yeah, maybe he's got some armies. Maybe he'll join our side.
You just gotta hit those puppy dog eyes. Samuel's just
Mara be like, you can have the armies, but like, no, he stays behind somewhere. take the men, not him.
I've just remembered that last episode. That put the nail in the coffin for any possible friendship between Mara and Faye, for sure. Because before she was like, you've made my friend, my whatever Samuel is, whatever that word is, you've made him make bad decisions, but I've just seen you be so brutally cruel to a man who is clearly not even there. That was like kicking a dog in the head.
It was brutal. It was fucking brutal.
I'm glad I said what I did to the maesters about you.
She's had all this time though to like go through these phases of how she's felt about Alistair, from like him going to prison and that being heartbreaking for her because now she has no idea what she's doing. Like she's still kind of newly married. They've been married like a few months, maybe a year at that point. Then she loses her child, and in her mind that's kind of his fault because it's what he did that caused it. She goes, we don't see it, but there's that 5-year time skip between season 2 and 3. 3 and 4. I don't know.
3 and 4.
One of those ones.
I think.
I feel like it's 2 and 3.
Oh, 4 and 5.
It's 3 and 4. Season 3 ends with Miriah being rescued from Ironwood, and then there's the time skip.
And like over the time skip, like Don and I worked out all this background with like Mara and Samuel, because obviously when you see them together after the time skip, there's already like a kind of established thing that's gone on for a couple of years. But basically she just locks herself in a room at Old Oak and doesn't do anything, doesn't see anybody, doesn't go anywhere. Because she also thinks her brother's dead at that point because Simon's disappeared, and it's Samuel who finds out where Simon is for her and like shows up, and then is like, you don't have to like stay in here and mope. You can like go outside and do things, and we can go places, and like that's kind of the beginning of their relationship and the weird spring break year.
Jason was involved in this too, and this is one of my like, I don't think I'll ever get the answer to this, but it's always been something in the back of my mind. We worked out basically like Simon was in some shit at the end of season 3. Simon was screwed, and Samuel comes and bails Simon out, and then talks to Simon as like, I think your sister's in trouble. I want to try to help her. Will you help me help her? And she's just lost this child. And so the two of them together are able to kind of help pull Mara out of her funk a little bit. And Simon and Sam will continue to have like a on and off again, like, we write each other kind of thing. And the next time we see Simon in season 4 and then thereafter, Simon's like trying to convince Miriah to assassinate Samuel. Simon's like constantly throwing him under the bus. Samuel doesn't know this either. So Samuel in Samuel's mind, like, oh yeah, Simon's my maester buddy in Old Town.
Simon's feelings about Samuel, like when Jason and I have talked, are basically how Faye feels about Mara, because he's convinced that Samuel's the one talking his sister into all of this stuff. And
really?
It's not
is that what he said?
he doesn't want to believe that his because she's younger than him, I think. He doesn't want to believe that his little sister would just go and make these decisions that she's making. Like, he doesn't want to believe it, again, because you want to see the best in the people you care about. And they haven't really had a chance to have any conversations for Mara to be like, no, I made this decision. Samuel didn't trick me into marrying him. Like, I chose this. Like, I made all these bad decisions all on my own. But I can't even remember what we were talking about now.
We'll talk again on this topic once the show's over.
I love that though. It shows the dichotomy with how Simon views his siblings, because as we know from like backstory, and it didn't really come up much in the game, but Simon never liked Miriah because he saw her as the cause of his mother's death, and Simon was a huge mummy's boy, and he wanted nothing to do with Miriah. And by the time she was like 3 or 4, he went off to the Citadel anyway, so he didn't really have anything to do with her. So, you know, he's like, I want to see the best in Mara. I believe that she's good and nice. And then he's like,
Mara and Simon, when he goes to the Citadel, he writes to Mara. He said he is how Mara learns to speak High Valyrian, not from a tutor, but because he sends her stuff so that she can kind of teach herself, and he writes to her in High Valyrian, and that's how she learns. So they keep up this whole like brother-sister relationship that him and Miriam never have. And so he has no idea what to do when he's suddenly like, this doesn't feel like the sister I knew. I remember where I was going with this now, though. It was Mara being cruel to Alistair. She goes through all these phases of like kind of forgetting him and getting over him, and then realizing how fucking awful he was, and like the real consequence of what he did. Like, it's not her family's fault that they've turned their back on her. It's his. He orchestrated the situation. And then she kind of like, she marries Samuel and everything's fine, and she doesn't have to think about Alistair in that prison because there's another 5 years to go. And that's another problem. And, you know, she gets the marriage annulled, and then she's like, I'm free, I'm done, it doesn't matter. But then, of course, his father dies, and she hears, and she's like, oh, wait, no, that's not how this works. Like, he still exists. I can't ignore that. By the time she sees him on that battlefield, she knows somewhere deep down that he's not right, that, like, this is not the same person. But all of that like pent up anger that she never got to say her bit to him and be like, fuck you for what you did, just comes out all in one. And it's also that fear. She is so afraid that he might come in and ruin everything again for her. It's not even like a fear of like, he'll take Samuel away from me. It's just like, he'll do something and it'll get somebody killed, or it'll screw things up, that she's just like, what's the most horrible thing I can say to ward him off? Because like, she threatens to like have him skinned and like mounting his, but it's basically like, if I can just scare you into not wanting to be anywhere near me or anything to do with me, I don't have to think about you, because you're gone. You're going to be too afraid to come anywhere near me or anything I care about, and then I don't have to deal. Like, entirely projecting fear back as threats, because otherwise she's just a mess again. And she is afterwards. As soon as he leaves, she's just like, she can't believe the words that came out of her mouth, and she doesn't even know she believes them. Like, if he showed up at the camp tomorrow, would she have him killed? She has no idea. She just knows that it sounds really good, and hopefully it means he'll fuck off. Like, that's what that whole thing was. It was just a dog baring its teeth, not knowing if it would bite.
Yeah.
He probably shouldn't try, though. Like, that's a thing. It's probably safer if he doesn't. But
is he altogether enough to realize that, though? Because by the end of it, he still
thinks that she's his wife.
He still didn't know. Yeah. But man, that
he's not in there.
He's not.
I am dreading him showing up while the battle's going on, because Mara's by herself at the camp. And I'm just like, no, don't show up here, because bad things will happen, because somebody's going to die.
Either he's going to do that, or I can see Sam being the messy bitch that she is. He's so driven by, Mara is my wife, and he has taken her, that he makes just a single-minded beeline for Samuel on the battlefield. And then Samuel will have to put down his one true love, Alistair. And it'll be so sad. And then here comes Baelor. Oops. Tragedy.
I'm worried about Baelor. Alistair is not a good fighter. I'm not worried about him.
No, he's a trash fighter.
No, but that's
I don't
the
know who gave
point,
that boy a
right?
sword, but like,
yeah, I know.
Not that many people can best Samuel on the battlefield, but that's not the blow that would strike.
If Alistair kills 2 of my characters, then
No,
I'd
it
so
wouldn't be
salty.
about that though, right? It would.
No,
it would be
no, I'm
how
all
it would
about the
fuck
mess.
Samuel's head up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not, I don't usually, I don't think too much about like how my character is going to respond to certain situations. I think about like what their point of view is.
Mhm.
That's like what my notes are, like what's their point of view on different things, different people. I don't know how you'd respond to that. I have no idea, but it would be messy. It is messy. We are messy.
It is already messy.
Yes,
That
we
little
are.
Alistair hand, oh,
So Mills and Boone, it was. Mwah.
What makes it worse is that Mara and Samuel have never really talked about that. Like they've briefly discussed that night, like while drunk on a boat somewhere.
We've talked
That's
about this
just
many times. Like Samuel won't talk about it. He will not talk about Alistair.
Well, like over that like 5-year journey, like I don't think either of them refer to him by name if he ever comes up. It's just like him, that guy. But like
Healthy.
Mara doesn't want to ask either. I was just
really
like, I don't
healthy
know if I want to
relationship
know.
right there.
To be fair, they tell each
Stable,
other like
strong.
98% of everything else.
Mhm.
Just don't say your ex-boyfriend's name or the fact that you got kissed on a hill. Just
Oh,
little
Mara
things.
wouldn't care about
little
that.
things.
Like
Just the little
There-
things.
Just
I
little
think we
things.
can probably talk about this now. When Samuel like went to Faye being like, I'll give you whatever. Don and I talked of like how much does Mara know about what he's about to try and offer Faye, which is anything you want. Because Mara had a whole thing of like, if it's sending me away, the answer is no, we're not doing it. Like that's not a thing. But like Mara was just like, well, if you have to get with her, fine, whatever. I don't care. Just don't lie to me about it. Like Mara so does not give a fuck about that. It's just Alistair because she hates him so much. Anybody else, like she'll sit front row with the wrestling. She doesn't care.
That's not how that scene went with Faye, though.
No, it's
No,
not.
that went.
We didn't get that far because somebody got a bit
No.
army happy, didn't they?
I love how
Yeah.
like in all of the Faye Samuel scenes, it's just like
Could have just
finally
fucked her, but no.
understanding, like old times coming up, getting closer. So about those armies,
It was like,
just-
hmm.
Samuel's so
Yeah.
sure that
No.
like
Yeah,
this is the point to
no.
ask.
Yeah,
And
you're
then
like
Faye's walls go up immediately, and it's like, oh, this is a disaster.
he's like the flip side of conversations with every teenage boy. When you're desperately just trying to make conversation and their brain's just going, don't look at her tits, don't look at her tits. Like, don't talk about our armies. Just don't do it. Don't do it. My eyes are up here. My armies are over there. Can we just right there?
Yeah.
5 minutes. Go on. Let's see if you can do it.
The thing is, Faye, is that Samuel can wrestle with the dudes in the army. It's the real reason.
I mean, if that's what it takes to get prolonged eye contact, she's almost there. Oil me up, I'm going in.
Somebody's gonna look at the war expenses for the Tarly camp and be like, why have they ordered so much oil?
I think a lot of spend an entire wealth point on oil, on body
Yeah.
oil.
Not even like pitch for the catapults. It's just
No.
body oil.
They start moving it, and Sam's like, no, not those barrels.
Not those.
Those stay here.
Those 5 barrels are for tonight.
It's a way to keep morale up in the camp, I suppose. Yeah. This is actually a very good point here from Pope in the chat, that hate has played such a central part in this story. Like, in the background of everything, hate, whether it's hate between characters or generational hate or hatred of cultures and such, our initial conflict is between the Reach and Dawn. That's the one of the through lines through season 1 was these raiders that were fake along the Dornish border, right? And playing off that hatred between the Reacher lords and the Dornish lords. And then as that's developed, as our story and our characters developed, the hate between characters, like, I'll be real, Miriah fucking hates Alistair. She fucking hates Samuel. She can't quite bring herself to hate Mara, she hates that she loves Mara, but Miriah feels a lot of hate. She feels a lot of hate for the Targaryens. Like, it is a driving force for a lot of us, I feel like, in some way or another.
It's also interesting how, like, we all see around the hate. So, you know, like, Miriah wants to hate Mara, but then there's always a question of, like, but does Miriah hate Mara? Does she just love a version of Mara that was before all this terrible stuff? Because you love different versions of people. Like, you see it with Faye. Faye knows this version of Samuel that was her version of him when they were younger. But, you know, like 5 or 6 years have passed since that went on, and Samuel's seen battle since then. And so he's a different person now. Alistair is seeing a very different Mara that's a lot less soft and a lot less kind. She's seeing a different, like, she's still seeing the version of him that she grew to hate. She's not seeing the version of him as he is now.
I think maybe that's what it is. Sorry, go for it.
No, I don't know where else I was going to go with that. It's just that general idea of, like, the hatred that we all feel only extends so far based on how much you care about the person and, like, which version of them you're hating, because you get both.
Yeah.
You hate and you love versions of these characters as they are to each other, because they're never quite the same season to season, or, you know, in the history of their own, like, relationships.
I think that's what it is. Rather than an exploration of hate, it's an exploration of truth, because everybody has their own version of the truth of what has happened based on their own traumas and the side of something that they've seen. And the thing that none of them can really wrap their head around is that there is no truth, that there isn't a right and wrong in any of these situations.
They all struggle to accept, like, each other's truths as well. Like, way back in the tournament, Mara can't accept why Miriah is pissed, because she's just like, well, that's not how that happened. But to Miriah, that's true. That's what she knows. And it's not that she's lying. That is just the truth that she understands. And same with Faye. Faye hates Mara based on the truth of what she sees and what she knows and what she's heard. But Faye doesn't know Mara.
The things Mara says and does. And
to be fair, she probably doesn't want to know the things that Mara says and does about Faye at this particular point in time anymore. But, like,
yeah, I think she's assumed it's already been happening.
Maybe a little bit. There might have been, like, a brief conversation of, like, how much power are we giving this hostage? And then I imagine that she just does the whole, well, you care about her, so I guess she's important. I guess I'm just going to sit here and not argue.
Let's all just not think about it.
Yeah. But no, it is. It's all about each character's own truths and making our truths. Because each one of us at some point has determined something in our characters, right? And our characters have determined something about themselves, and they've made their own truths about themselves, whether or not that is actually who or what they are or who or what they believe in. They have established it. For me, this is my truth, you know? Like, my big one for Miriah, obviously, is I am Oliver's daughter. Whether or not that is actually true, we don't know. But she has determined that it is true, and she is living her life as if that is true. And each one of us at some point with our characters has done that, which I think is juicy, juicy, juicy.
Like, Enzo's a runner. That's his truth.
He has a ship that is real.
I'm so looking forward to Enzo showing up in the camp. Just, like, showing up and being like, oh, where is everybody? Like, they're all over there swinging swords at each other. It's just me and some guards here, and Faye is over in that tent. Like,
I think it's going to be really climactic the way that the next session or two comes together. I suspect will be very climactic. I'm looking forward to it a whole lot. Oliver, my first character, I think had a lot of hate, a lot of, or passion, maybe. I think hate is probably the right word. Because he grew up during the Dornish Rebellion, which was this terrible event that happened before the Blackfyre Rebellion. And it like the way that the Martells and some of the other Dornish houses and some of the Targaryen, their vassal houses, not the king. The king tried to like smooth things out, but basically everybody else involved just like did the most terrible atrocities in Dorne. It's like one of the ugliest events in recent history in Westeros. And so that was like a really driving thing for him. But for Samwell, I honestly don't think that he holds a lot of hate. I think Samwell doesn't know if he hated his father or not. He wanted to love his father, but he wasn't sure if he hated his father. But that relationship, which we didn't get to see a lot, but I think you can see the effects of it, is like what's driven him to become ambitious. I think it's a common thing that explore, especially if you're like in a toxic masculinity kind of culture. The idea of like these expectations of what a man should be and what a lord should be in a kind of feudal setting, and the generational disappointment has been a big driving force to him to stop kind of sitting on the sidelines and be maybe too proactive. One could argue that he's made too many decisions, and I think that's the reason why. But I don't think he certainly doesn't have any love for the Targaryens. He certainly has his, like you said, everybody has their truths of like political truths, social truths, personal truths. But I don't think like hate for him is a really driving factor unless like, his relationship with his father counts. But I love that so many of our characters started off young and are still relatively young, because like when you're young, even in a society like this, you are constantly changing. How you view the world changes. You experience hardships that you hadn't experienced before. And all of that forms and cements your worldview and how you look at things around you. The older you get, you become more accustomed to trauma or dealing with hardships like that. And so maybe like your views don't quite shift as much, I think is probably pretty normal. But all of our characters really are pretty young. And they're dealing with constant trauma, both on a large societal scale, political scale, but also in their personal lives. And so like a lot of these characters that have been around for a while, like Mara and Miriah, but even Faye over the course of the last couple of seasons, and Samwell over the course of the last couple of seasons, have changed, and their perspectives on the world have changed because of what's happened to them. I love seeing that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. If we had like a bunch more seasons left, I would love to see where all these characters,
right? If we survive to old age, like what would our characters even be at that point?
Yeah, like right? Faye'd had be like the head of some spy agency with like murderers in one division and saboteurs in the other.
I feel like Mara's life would be so much less exciting. Mara would just want to be like, I just want to be the lady of house, have some kids, and like just things not to go to hell. Like that's all she's wanted since season 1. She just wants to be happy. It's like been her ultimate goal of just like, fuck all of the rules, because none of that matters if I'm miserable. And that's a dangerous view to have in Westeros when you're a noble, because your happiness is second to basically everything else that's bound to you by duty.
I genuinely can't picture Miriah as an old woman. Like, I don't know where she would end up, just because, I started playing her at 13, when the entire world is just too huge and too big for you to comprehend, and your best friend dancing with the boy you like in dancing lessons is a end of the world situation for you, to where she is now, where she's 18. She's just survived an absolutely horrible battle. She's pregnant, she's alone, and she has all this shit on her shoulders. Like, I can't imagine her as an old woman. Like, I don't see where she would end up, like she's changed so much. I wonder how much she would change again, if having the kid will change her, or if she'll be able to just be like, okay, I have to compartmentalize this until my mission is done, or whether or not she can't do that, and whether or not she will try and take on the House of Black and White. Who knows?
It's so weird to think that Miriah is still so young, though, with like everything she's been through. Because I think there's 5 years between Miriah and Mara, because Mara is like 23 at this point. She gets married at 18. So like she's weirdly late into marriage, and I have weird backstory reasons that are to do with the fact that she was like daddy's favorite, basically. She was a daddy's girl. And like that's weird because Mara comes into this responsibility at like 18 and then it's like, I don't know what to do. And then at like 23 is like, oh, I'm the lady of a house and there's a war. And like Miriah's already been doing all of this and she's 18 and she's just got back a house. And just like it's so weird how our characters being so young have achieved like these weird points in their life at such different stages, even though I don't think anyone's wildly older or younger.
I don't think so.
Than like between like 18 and mid-20s, I think is where we're all at. I don't know how old the other characters are.
I think Faye is, what is Faye, 22, 23?
Yeah, I think 22, 23 this season, yeah.
Samuel's 24. Maybe Enzo's a little older. How old's
I think
Enzo?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything
Right?
about Enzo.
Nobody knows anything about.
I
We
think
keep making
Enzo,
Tom promise to
He's
tell us everything.
675 years old.
I think he's mid-20s, mid to late 20s. I think Simon's the oldest character.
Right. Yeah,
Simon
maybe.
is.
Yeah.
Simon's, I think, like maybe 4 or 5 years older than Mara.
He's the oldest of the remaining Greenmont, so that
Yeah.
checks out. Yeah.
He was the third born.
Because Lan and Rylan were like way, way older because they were like essentially like they were like somewhere between 16 and 18 or something when the fighting went on.
Yeah. But yeah, we're all so fucking young.
Yeah. And we're entrusted with way too much responsibility.
Yeah.
Don't let kids lead
Yeah.
armies.
No.
Don't mix power and hormones. It's a bad
Right.
idea.
I think one of the things I've wanted to do with Miriah this season is get across her immaturity a little bit. It's why she has made some extremely questionable decisions, especially like where boys are concerned and that shit. Like, she's a kid. She doesn't have a chance to have these feelings in like a safe environment. Like at 14, she was leading fucking troops down to stop raiders on the border at Greenmont and saw men murdered in front of her. She's just been like.
And you grew up a ward as well, so like even at the younger age, like a lot of noble girls in Westeros at much younger ages would have the whole courting and being encouraged to kind of understand where their romantic lives would lead, which is usually arranged marriages. Like Mara's whole thing, Mara knew from a young age that she was gonna, like, as she was coming of age, she was gonna be married off, and that's why she got married so late. She was like, hey, Papa Greenmont, I don't want to just be married off to some dude and thrown out of my home. And he's like, okay, we won't marry you off until you want to then. How's that?
Yeah. Well,
like,
imagine
she gets none of that preparation. She's just like, you're a ward.
Yeah.
You sit here and you do exactly as you're told, and maybe we'll marry you off to a good family.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So
but we're not going to tell you about it.
She grew up at Greenmont. Lucas barely had anything to do with her, so she was, running around all over his ankles all the time, being a pain in the ass for him. But she's like the fifth born kid. She's not fucking of anyone of any import. So she was kind of just allowed to just, go a little wild and do her own thing.
She's the spare kid in case something happens to all of the boys and the firstborn daughter.
She'd have got married off to someone who's probably not that important. Like a minor noble, just get rid of her, whatever. She's,
a respectable house.
But no one of import.
About that.
And then at 10, she's taken to Summerhall, where it's like, all right, you're being ripped away from your family. This dickhead is now looking after you. Oh, by the way, because you are 10 years old, you have to look after these other children now as if you were, their actual siblings / fucking caretaker. And then don't worry, here you'll be safe. You'll get a good education. You'll learn all the dancing and stuff. But then also, that's not true because she got ripped from there, like, by her fucking uncle and dragged through the mountains. Like, nothing in her life has gone as it was supposed to have gone. So she's floundering. She's trying to find her feet. And she found it in a rebellion.
Like you do.
As you do.
Yeah. Angsty teenager phase. Except, instead of rebelling against mum and dad, it's the crown and the country.
A man with no name is definitely the oldest character. I don't even want to define how old he is. I've never even thought about it, but he's definitely very, very old.
Yeah.
Pope, I don't know what you're talking about. The Wills are our very, very good friends.
They've been so helpful. The Wills kind of saved House Ironwood.
Yeah, they kept
All
making her
because of a-
busy.
Mhm. And that was
All because
because
of a lie we told.
that's because of a lie we told at the masquerade ball, and rubbed elbows with them, made friends with them.
We lied about Lord John being dodgy and like doing something in Dawn, but then it turned out to be true because he was planning to move a whole host
I
into
need to
Dawn.
send them a
Just-
gift basket or something.
If you send them a couple of Oakheart heads, I'm sure they'll be very happy about it.
Well, I mean,
Just
they
saying.
can just go through the Boneway and just have a dig around all the corpses in there, if they want. See if they can find any nice trophies.
I know where one of them is if they'd like some info. Somebody get me a raven. How long does it take to get from the Wills up to where we are?
What would happen? This is not going to happen, but this would be a thing that I could see the Wills doing. They could swoop in and take Ironwood right now so easily after that battle.
They could. We've still got the Guardians of the Stoneway, so they're still there. We've still got that garrison. And I feel like at this point, if someone tried to take the castle, Miriah would just fight until her last breath.
Yeah.
Where she's at right now, she's like, fuck it. This is it. This is my last stand.
Where she has nowhere else to go.
Yeah. So she'd fight until her very last and hopefully repel them. But, probably not. It's Game of Thrones.
Do not mention this theory to Sam. Susie.
I won't tell her.
I'm not gonna.
We have a rule. After the show stops, Susie starts talking about things, and you can see Sam, and she's taking notes, and we're like, Susie, shh, you're making it worse for yourself. Shut up.
I'll say something, and Sam goes, "Oh," and then she starts writing. I'm like, "Fucking put that pen down. You put a pen down." No, the thing I'm most worried about for Miriah right now is Bloodraven. But also, I don't think it's going to come up in the show because I think we will end before it gets to that point. But I'm trying to reconcile if Miriah can bring herself to give up her kid. Because we haven't talked about it happened this season. The price for the execution of Prince Marin Martell, was that Miriah wipes out all of the Targaryens, which I don't think is a very fair trade. One life for an entire dynasty, but
they did say that they would help.
Yes, they did say. But then also, because I was very afraid of fighting Maker, I asked Sam if I could perhaps acquire some poison. To which she goes onto the fucking internet, she Googles basilisk venom or whatever the shit it was, and she goes, "Oh, the faceless men use it, do they?" And I immediately knew when she went, "Oh," that it was going to happen and that the fucking facey was going to show up because we'd heard about Marin Martell earlier in the season. I did not know, however, that the price for said poison would be, give us your kid.
Yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed playing that character for the one season I played him, and I stopped for a couple of reasons. One, he had a reason to be with other characters, which kind of ended in tragedy, and I had mixed feelings about that. But after that ended, like, I realized, like, if I keep playing him, he's probably going to be on his own a lot. I'm not going to get to interact with other people. And also, of all of my super busted characters that I've designed for this campaign, he was by far the strongest, like by far the best character that I designed. And he still had like destiny points left. So like, even if he had lost, he would have survived. And so I kind of wanted to build I kind of wanted to come in fresh with something that was a little bit more traditional, and also like constantly burn all my destiny points. And so I've done that. So like Samuel hasn't had a safety net, and I like that as a player. Oliver died with a destiny point left over that I used for that dream for Miriah. I like there not being a safety net, and he felt my faceless man felt a little bit too safe, and I just wanted to be able to play with the other players a little bit more. But that was a fun scene to come back for, and I figured, like, there were a few times early in this campaign where I would make like a surprise, like I would make like a surprise, guest entrance or something that people weren't expecting. But like, all my tricks at this point. Like you knew that I was going to show up as the faceless man.
I knew because we were going to play a week, and then you couldn't make it for some reason. poison.
And Sam was
everybody
like, "Oh,
else
we'll just
could."
stop."
Yeah, and Sam was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we'll just skip this week." And I'm like, because
Mhm.
Don's going to be the faceless man. I fucking know it. And then you were, and I was like, oh. But yeah, after that scene ended, it was a very similar situation for me with the Harris thing, when he said, "Oh, I can't marry you," and Miriah didn't fight. You know, she didn't say, "Hang on, this is bullshit. You want me to kill all of the Targaryens and take my child?" Because again, she's just so tired and defeated, I think, emotionally, because she's just coming to terms with the fact that she's going to be a mother, and that she's alone. But also, this dude can literally take off his fucking face and be someone else. What is she going to do? Like, if he says, no, that's the price, is she just going to be like, "Oh, fuck you, I'll fight you," and then die anyway? You know, like, she didn't really feel like she had much of a choice in the moment. Which is one of those, like, nice devil's bargains, right? Like, I'm going to give you the ability to kill a prince, but it might cost you everything. And it was in that moment, what is more important to you in that moment? And in that moment, she was thinking, well, if I don't kill Maekar, it doesn't fucking matter whether or not I'm pregnant and whether or not I'm going to carry this kid, because if I don't kill him, he will kill me, and it will be all for nothing anyway.
Yeah.
So this is my chance to kill him, and then also, you know, maybe if I am successful, get my kid back. But, you know, sorry, go ahead, Don.
I loved how you played that scene, and with the devil's bargain too. And that's one of the things with, like, the House of Black and White, is that the ask is always what's most important to you. And so there was an element of that with your child. Not that I think, you know, potentially not losing your child forever, but having to be willing to take that chance that you might to do this thing. But the other half of that with him in particular is, like, he's still fighting this old war. And it's not, you know, it's not about Blackfyre, and it's about the last of the Valyrian line that survived, that escaped. And the House of the Black and White, they were slaves in Old Valyria. They caused the doom of Old Valyria, and they almost got them all. And that one house that got away has continued to wreak havoc in this whole other continent for centuries and centuries and centuries.
Yeah.
And the way that Miriah, like, because that's a tough situation. But you could have said no to Miriah. Could have said no to the poison. But if you had, you probably, like, I don't think you would have beaten Maekar. You would have died.
Yeah. And that would have been it. So ultimately, the poison was the right choice to make, but it was a brutal choice. It was a very difficult choice. But that's Game of Thrones, right? It's full of difficult choices. No one gets a happy ending. Even if the sun shines beautifully as you defeat Baelor's army, and Harris packs up and comes to Ironwood and proposes to Miriah, and she accepts, and they get married and have the kid's still got to go to Bravos. Like, there is no happy ending here. Like, she's still got to take that kid away from, you know, the kid's family.
The idea that, like, a continent that's based in constant war and violence, even if it's unified as 7 kingdoms as one, or like the idea that there's ever going to be peace in this continent it's not really realistic, right? We haven't, you know, if that's a possible future, we haven't figured that out in our world at this point. And this is a much older, you know, kind of society. Yeah. So, you know, there is no happy ending because it doesn't end. It just keeps going.
No, well, you know, if Blackfyre gets its independent, wins, dethrones the Targs, Blackfyre gets the throne, Dawn is still gonna, well, mainly because of me, but Dawn will be like, I want to be part of this. We want to be on our own, which is not going to be resolved peacefully. That's going to be a conflict in itself. One of the countries then, you know, secedes from the 7 kingdoms. The others are going to have a fucking go. That's not going to be peaceful either. There's going to be lords that can't accept that the Blackfyres are the kings now. They're going to kick off. Like, it's going to be a shit show.
Yep.
And we did it.
And if you can take out Bloodraven, if Miriah can take out Bloodraven, then you either doom or save the entire world in 100 years. It's like one or the other. I think you doom it.
Yes.
I think if Bloodraven dies, then the White Walkers destroy everything.
Yeah, because he can't train Bran.
That's right.
And get involved with the whole Weirwood network. I mean, what a shame. Oh no.
Oh no. I kind of like them. Give the White Walkers. Let's see what the White Walkers can do. They might do a better job.
Right? They gave it a good go, you know, in the long night. Let's give them a long night too. Let's see what happens.
Sorry, I just came back in time to hear that bit. Just there's so much in the canon that we could wreck. Because the other thing is that obviously Samwell Tarly in the show is a descendant of House Tarly. So if anything happens to Samwell, nobody discovers Dragonglass, even if Raven,
yeah, that's true.
Bloodraven lives, which means they never find the secret to killing the White Walkers because it's Samwell Tarly who digs up that information from the depths of Old Town.
And we really fucked the timeline. We've probably already doomed the world.
On the upside, we might have done enough to not have the coffee cup in season 8. Like we might have made.
Well, if we get rid of the Targs, that means that Daenerys can't ever be born, which means we can't ever have the coffee cup.
But then you need the dragons to kill the White Walkers, so we're also kind of fucked.
Yeah,
we've definitely doomed Westeros 100 years in the future, like for sure at this point.
For the inevitable next show that we do of this, that we're definitely not peer pressuring Susie into making happen. The after show should absolutely be called "Fuck the Timeline."
Fuck the Timeline.
Dawn edition.
No, I have been thinking about that. If we do one, I would love to do it during Nymeria's conquest of Dawn. Because I feel like setting a Game of Thrones campaign during a time of conflict is a juicier setting. During peacetime, it's kind of fucking boring because then you have to manufacture the conflict yourself, you know, rather than being like, it would just be like a game of Catan where it's like, I'd like to go up the road to Rosby and trade them 3 sheep for a couple of wheat, you know, like, but
let's face it, Susie, it's not like it's difficult for us to manufacture conflict.
No, that is true.
We could all play farmers in Westeros and still get ourselves embroiled in a war.
Are you calling us dramatic bitches? I am personally offended.
Evidence.
Rude.
Millie.
What? Yeah. Hi.
Are you going to go on the internet and tell lies like that?
I mean, I am personally offended. I didn't say it wasn't true.
But it would be curious as if we could fuck up the timeline so much, even in like that theoretical game, which is not confirmed that is yet happening and I've not yet been fully peer pressured into doing. If we could fuck up the timeline so bad from Nymeria's conquest that it fucks it up for ATF.
Fuck both the timelines.
I would like that. That sounds fun. I'd also, I also like the idea because that's really a conflict too between like, you know, sections of Essos and Westeros, like that invasion. I think Essos is super interesting and there's some weird, crazy, cursed places in Essos that would be super cool to be able to see.
There's some real weird shit in Essos.
There's some weird shit. And I love it.
I'd love to play like a Red Priestess. I think I've said to Sam a few times, like, if Mara dies, just let me come back as a Red Priestess and go around telling people creepy shit. Like, that would be 100% my thing. Just show up.
Oh God, I just thought, like, if we had like another season and Sam wasn't like, I'm fucking done, and Mara died this season, there is a way you could come in as a Red Priestess. Because the Maester at Ironwood is a
follower for law, right?
Yes,
he is. Yeah, he's a red priest.
So, in a way, I am glad because Miriah does not need that shit on top of everything.
That's what I was asking Sam for.
And you just took over. You just took over R'hllor.
It's like, please let me come in as a. I've even asked Sam, just like, can I just come in and guest as a Red Priestess? I just want to say some creepy shit to Miriah. That's all I want to do.
Don't, because then extra as well. If you remember the season 2 intro, when Horatio was marrying Jane Martell, who is still my prisoner, by the way, I hope. I've not checked in on her in a while.
Oh no!
It's just
Did you
bones.
feed the hamster, Susie?
Well, she's gonna die anyway because her mother's a Targaryen, so she's of the Valyrian bloodline, so she's gotta go. But if you remember, there was a red priest at that wedding too, which gave the prophecy, which Miriah kind of manifested.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna text Sam.
It was the like meteor coming down on
this
Castle Ironwood, right? Was the prophecy, and the scorpion,
the scorpions fighting above the gatehouse, and then the sand coming in and destroying, and the way lying unguarded, which it did for a while, until I came back and guarded it extremely strongly. But
we haven't seen a lot of it recently, but the moments, and I like that too, because it's kind of the way that it is in the way that George R. R. Martin writes the novels. Magic in this world is really dark and not understood. Like there's no clear consensus on how it works or what's true, what's not true. Everybody's got their own ideas, and when it shows up, it's creepy as fuck, and it's impactful. And yeah, I love that aspect of the setting, and I like that it doesn't come up very often. But when it does, I always get really excited. Like anytime that, Marcia cursed somebody or, did some blood magic, like all of that stuff is, I love
the
seeing
whole
it.
thing with her and the boys, right? Ensuring that she had a male child, was a whole like, ooh, moment. Very, very good there. And very Game of Thrones, very...
First time we actually see magic working as well, because it gets talked about a lot before that, and there's a lot of talk of like the old gods and stuff because of Greenmont's connection with them. And then that's like the first, and it's visceral as well because it's like proper blood sacrifice in front of the weirwood, and then you have the birth scene, and like giving birth is pretty fucking horrific.
I would love to mess some more with the magic side of this, because like my character in the Crownlands towards the end of that got like deeply mired in that, and that was so beautifully trippy. The potential for that is huge, and I just want to fight.
Magic's always got a terrible cost in Game of Thrones, though, in some way or another, and it's not always like direct correlation of you did the thing, you pay the cost. It's just like a horrible, weird, almost karma, where it's like, yeah, you did this magic, and now this other terrible thing just happens.
Yeah,
deeply related to it.
Like Tala's like, hey, I've suddenly got mad witchy powers. My brother's dead. Why won't he come back? I rolled really well. Come back, and that's it. The end.
Well, that was because Sam was being a dramatic bitch yet again. She's like, no, he's dead. That's it.
I love that though. That's so perfect. You can try as much as you want, but sometimes the gods just do not will it.
I just thought about that scene. That was horrible too, because at one point all the siblings were kind of reunited for a brief moment to watch their brother die.
Yeah, that was real fun.
Horrible.
That was great.
And Allegra was heavily pregnant at the time too.
I think like a lot of the most imaginative cultures in the world and in the setting are the ones that are steeped in like weird religion and weird magic. And some of that's in Essos, but you get it with the Ironborn, which I think like their religious views are in the way that they sometimes use magic is really cool. And you get it with the Red Priests, which are mostly in Essos, but they come into Westeros. I mean, there's all different kinds of them. And those cultures are really vivid. Yeah, that's all. I love them.
No, it's good shit. All right.
Shit.
I feel like we're kind of wrapping up a little bit here. But before we do, are there any predictions or things we would like to see in this upcoming battle or anything towards, because we're in like the final chunk of episodes now. Like, is there anything towards the end of the season that we would like to see from any of our characters as we sort of cap off our little story?
I want to see like all the seeds of drama that we've planted. I just want to see how they sprout. Like finally, like where do they finally go? Where do we end up? And it probably, it's going to end in such a way that some of the stories, some of us will not make it, and maybe we all will. But it's not going to be entirely resolved. You're going to be able to, for the characters who survive, you're going to be able to imagine like now they have to deal with the situation. They still have their full lives ahead of them. They're just kids. So I'd love to see how we can find those moments of resolutions with all the characters connected. And for my character, for Samuel, I would love to see. I mean, I'm gonna come out swinging, and Samuel's gonna try to pull off, his checkmate moves that he's tried to set up. But I would love to see him be held responsible for his actions in whatever way that happens, karmically, politically, on the battlefield. I would love to see that.
I too would like to see Samuel be held responsible for his actions.
I feel Mara in the back of my head every time. It's like, Samuel will take responsibility. She's just like, no, that's not gonna, no, we're not doing the whole trial thing. Like every time he says it to someone, it's like, after this is done, I will take responsibility. And Mara's like, you keep thinking that.
Who knows if he's being honest about that? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. He does say it a lot.
He says a lot of things.
I think being held accountable for his actions is such an abstract concept for him that I don't know. Like, I think he genuinely does want to be, but he doesn't know what that means, if that makes sense. Like, the theory of it is like, yes, that's the right thing to do.
And in the culture too, you have to think like being held responsible for your actions. If you're a lord, especially if you've had the training that he's had and the money and the resources he's had, can be as easy as I ask for a trial by combat, right? And if he wins, then he has been proven and held responsible for his actions and proven to be clear by the gods, which he doesn't really believe in, but socially, culturally, like that's a thing. So it's a broken system. People are not held accountable for their actions very often. I would like to see it happen to him, though.
It's how all of our characters kind of get to where they are, right? Is that either no one's holding them responsible, or they're holding to the ideals of holding people responsible who really will never be held to account. Like, I think for Mara, I'd love to see the whole thing with Alistair kind of resolved and bring that full circle. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's like her taking him out of the picture, whether that's there being a really twisted reconciliation kind of where something happens and she can finally let that go. But like that's been a thing that's like been a weight on her character ever since the first season. I'd love to see where her and Sam will kind of end up, assuming that they both kind of survive these battles. If it goes their way, what that means for like the future of House Tarly and like where that leaves their position, because they're either going to be in a really great place at the end of this if it all works out well, or it's going to go horribly wrong. And like you have you could end up, if Mara ends up pregnant, you could end up with a kind of Greenmont point too, where that child eventually gets warded off, where like that series of events, you could see the setup for that happening. That would be interesting, because so much of this story has had a weird like cyclical and repetitive nature to it, and all these parallels, purely I think by chance, and the fact that we weave them in without realizing, and then we tinfoil hat and are like, oh my god, this thing that we've entirely manufactured ourselves. But I think that's the big one, is like Mara's personal like love relationships have always been at the center of her character, and I think resolving what happens with her and Alistair and kind of seeing where that leaves, where this war leaves her and Samuel, is really interesting to me.
I think for me, it can go to a couple of ways. But if Blackfyre win, I want to see Miriah stop surviving and starting to thrive. So, she takes her seat as the Lady Ironwood. She makes herself a political power. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen in like the final episode, but that's, the start of it, right? Where she makes herself known, this declaration that this is who I am, this is what I am doing. Or if Blackfyre loses, then I don't assume that she will keep that castle for very long, and she will either be executed or in the parallels, she's exiled. And then, she becomes this wandering warrior woman who has to, you know, continue to survive. Her whole life will just be about survival. What about you, Millie?
Oh, I mean, I want us to see Enzo again. I absolutely do. And then after that, I guess the question is the same as I had at the beginning of the season, which is how does she manage to take power for herself, and what does that even look like for her? Like, is for her power sticking to her guns and remaining stubborn and picking up the pieces that are left at the end of this and making something out of it for the good of the Reach? Or for her is power finally giving up on something and choosing herself rather than other people? And just going, fuck the Reach, I'm going to be happy for myself, not because somebody tells me to do something. So it'll be interesting to see what she picks there, because it's still very much up in the air.
See, that's what I love about this, because even at the end of the show, there's still so many questions. But as Sam said, not all of them will be resolved. Yeah, all of this should be a huge asterisk.
Big caveat. If we survive.
If we survive. But okay, go on, Millie.
No, it's good. I can reply in chat.
I was just going to say, this is how you know that after the show ends, we're all just going to endlessly write fiction about our characters. It's
not over.
I don't know about anyone else,
but
like...
In 10 years' time, I will be sitting Sam down and I'll be like, look, okay, so it's still bugging me after 10 years. What the fuck was this about?
Mara, like, is her own separate personality somewhere in the back of my head where I keep all my RPG stuff. Like...
Yeah, I've got a horrible feeling like in about a year's time, I'm going to have to message Don and just be like, the ghost of Faye is still angry. And I think we need to have a fight.
We're all going to have to like sit down and have an intervention for each other of like, okay, we all need to sit down and talk about all the things we talk about. And like,
honest to God, if by the end of the campaign Mara's pregnant and the Tarleys get away scot fucking free and she managed to raise the kid with no issue and Miriah's there having given her fucking kid away to the House of Black and White, I'm gonna have to message you, V, and we are gonna have to have a fight. We are gonna have to argue because
like Miriah, an in-character fight.
We can co-write that, Fair. Come here for it.
She will not be happy.
Thing is, it would both be like horribly Game of Thrones. Like it would kind of be of like some of the worst people who do like the fact that you just get away with some shit. Sometimes there is no justice in the world. Like that would be, I'd love that for Mara just because I want her to be happy. It would be a really juicy ending, but I think the opposite would be as well. If it all ends in tragedy and heartbreak, that's just as satisfying because it's still no happy endings. There is no ending that is happy for everybody.
Yeah. If the campaign ends with how George R.R. Martin originally envisaged Game of Thrones, where it's just like an empty field of tombstones, I would be fine with it. If we all fucking died at the end, I would be fine with it. But we should wrap this up because I said we were going to wrap this up like 12 minutes ago. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of After the Fyre. Next week, touch wood, we're back with our episodes as normal, and it will be the battle for the Reach, basically, between the Tarly and Ballcamp versus Prince Baelor and all his boys. Anxious does not cover it, and I'm not even in this episode, but I will be there in chat with you all screaming. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern next week, right here on twitch.tv/follow Black Cat. So if you are not already following the channel, please do hit that follow button and make sure to tune in next week so you can see what happens to all our disaster characters. But before we go, we'll go around one last time, and if there's anything anyone wants to shout out and tell people where you are and all the usual thing. Millie, you're on my right.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Amelia Tyler. What were we doing? Shouting out things. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I've hideously overcommitted to absolutely everything at the moment. So you're going to get a long list right now. Tomorrow is Friday, right? So tomorrow I'm over on Gaming FTL playing Vampire the Masquerade. You get to meet Delilah, my character, who's basically the concept of what if Jessica Rabbit was a vampire who ran a strip club? That's fun. Seducing your GM is an experience that I would thoroughly recommend. Sunday, I'm over on Ophelia's channel playing D&D, playing Cinder the Red Tiefling. She is red, as is everything in my house when I'm playing that character. Monday is The Wandering Inn, playing Drifting, which is kind of like a sci-fi Firefly thing, where I'm playing Nomi, who is definitely not a robot assassin from the future. Tuesday, doing something Phasmo ? Or whatever we decide to do with Susie and Hot Flakes Tom. And then Wednesday, I'm over on Wild RP with Jay Britton, where we're playing Violet and Lucius Alabaster, who are brother and sister. It's not weird. I mean, we're together in real life and we're playing brother and sister, but it is not weird. Not in that way, anyway. And I think that's it. I think that's all the days. The
It wasn't
end.
weird until you kept mentioning how weird it wasn't, and then
It's fucking weird, Susie. It's weird. But
I was just laughing at the
we
unique
continue
expression
regardless.
Susie was making.
It is a little weird. Just a little bit, though. It's more cute than weird, to be honest.
Okay, we'll move on.
They're not that kind of brother and sister. It's not Westeros.
I never said they were. Bea, please save us.
Oh, I mean, we must be really in trouble if I'm the one who has to save us. Hi, I'm V. You can find me on Thursdays here being a disaster character, as Susie said earlier. I have been trying to do a streaming schedule, but this thing called freelance work keeps happening, so that's not a regular thing. But tomorrow, if you keep an eye on my Twitter, I am announcing a cool, exciting thing, which some folks in here might know about because I talk about things in our group chat. But if you like Ravenloft, you should look at my Twitter at some point tomorrow. That's what you should do. Otherwise, I'm just working on things. I'm working on some Fallout stuff and some other stuff, and then a bunch of other NDA stuff. I don't know. Find me on Twitter where I talk about dogs sometimes. That's probably just the best thing to do. I think it's Don's turn to save us now, because that was a horrible failed attempt. So
hey. Let's see here. I'm Don. You can find me at Donathan Fry on Twitter if you would like. Sometimes I tweet, not too often, but sometimes. And let's see, what am I up to? I'm finishing very, very soon, like probably in the next few days, a gigantic D&D 5th edition dark matter, so sci-fi, space opera, Mass Effect inspired campaign book that I've been working on for a long time. And it's really ambitious what I've done with this book. So I've been excited about seeing that come together. I'm working over the next month on finishing a big open, well, I can't say too much about it, but a big Fallout campaign book. I think will probably be the first full campaign for the Fallout role-playing game. Working with a really cool team on that one. And I'm really excited about how all that's coming together as well. And I run games professionally. You can join my Patreon if you want, get first dibs on open seats as they become available if you would like. And I do have a couple of I'm really excited about a couple of new projects coming up. I can't talk about them yet, but sometime over the next couple of weeks as we're playing out these final sessions of this campaign, should actually be able to share some of what I'm doing there. So I'll talk more about that soon. But yeah, good stuff. It's spring, it's warm finally, and I'm a happy person. That's all.
Would you like to tell that to the snow outside for me?
It's spring in Florida.
We had 4 attempts at the start of spring so far. None of them have stuck.
I remember the days. I don't miss it.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that Fallout thing because it's gonna look pretty good once it's out. But I am also, hello everybody, I'm Susie. I stream and stuff sometimes, and also you wouldn't think that I do this almost every day of the week, but you can follow me all over the internet at Susanna Grace, and that's Susanna with 1 N, as Sam put in the little command, which should be showing up in a second. I am at the minute quite busy with my own freelance work for NDA stuff, which I wish I could talk about, but I'm in NDA hell. But once that's released, I will scream about that nonstop. So, keep an eye out on my Twitter for that. I have been doing the best work of my life. I wanted to promise you folks. It's so good. I just can't show you. But when I'm not doing that, I am over on my Twitch channel. I will be there tomorrow. On stream at 2 p.m. Eastern or thereabouts, where I'll be playing Guilty Gear Strive again this week, and I'll be testing out the brand new character Testament, who was released a couple of days ago. They look awesome. Extremely cool androgynous person with a big blood scythe. I mean, I'm all about that shit. And then on Monday, back on my channel for Crusader Queens, where Sam and I put our faces on, and we do our makeup looks, and then we play Crusader Kings 3. Tuesday, I'll be doing something with Tom and Millie. We don't know yet because games are bad, and we need to find one that we like. Then on Wednesday, I'll be back here for the Spy Game, which is our 5e powered game of international espionage and action. I'm playing the hacker Athrena, who last time we played threw her entire team under the bus because her fiance showed up, and her fiance is an Interpol agent, and also Athrena has a Interpol red notice out for her for all of her financial hacking crimes. So things are, as you would expect, a little bit tense. Also, the Royal Navy have shown up because we're in the Cayman Islands and we exploded half of them. So do tune in for that. It is it's a shit show, but it's so good, and that is at 2 p.m. Eastern as well. And then again, as I said, back here on Thursday for After the Fyre. All right, I think that is it from us. Anything else we want to shout out before we go very briefly? Anything? Final
Thank you,
thoughts?
Susie, for hosting this, because you're fucking awesome.
All right. Okay.
That's it.
We out. Bye.